So I'm gonna be brutally honest with everybody here, and I kind of regret getting the new iPad mini 7, and here's why. Now before we break down my 5 main reasons as to why I think the iPad mini 7 is a regretful buy for me personally, I do want to make it known that the iPad mini 7 is a great device in a silo. All else aside, if there was no other iPads, there wasn't a previous iPad, then the iPad mini 7 is great in its own right, the price to performance ratio is decent. There's just a few things that let me down with the iPad mini 7 that I wanted to share with everybody, but at the end of the day, make your purchasing decision based on what you need and what you want, and I know that there are some use cases for the iPad mini 7 form factor, they just really aren't for me. And that is a great segue into the first reason, which is going to be the display size of the iPad mini 7 in general. It's kind of in this weird middle ground where the iPhone 16 Pro Max is now at 6.9 inches, and then you have the 11 or 10.9 inch iPad Air and iPad Pro, so it's kind of sandwiched in the middle with its 8.3 inch display. And the use cases are kind of far in between where I would need that specific size of a screen, because for the most part I can just gravitate towards my iPhone 16 Pro Max, which is always in my pocket, and then when I need a larger screen, I gravitate towards the larger iPad Pro that I have, which I have the 13 inch, but my wife had the 11 inch, and that 11 inch form factor, even though it's only a 2 inch difference between that and a 13 inch size, I still viewed that 2018 11 inch iPad Pro as kind of a perfect size for that throw around tablet, which is what I thought I wanted out of the iPad mini. That iPad mini 7 size is just too small for my personal use cases, and I'm not trying to do anything crazy on this iPad mini because I know that my workhorse is my 13 inch iPad Pro. I do some light note taking, I'll maybe go through my notes, I'll maybe pull up some other applications that I use in conjunction with my 13 inch iPad Pro, but for the most part it is just a content consumption and throw around iPad, and for that screen size, I just feel like I'm missing something from a screen size perspective for those use cases. And then to mosey on over to the second reason, it's going to be the lack of optimization from the screens, and it goes back to the awkward size of the screen display, because yes, it is treated as an iPadOS device, it's treated as an iPad by the applications that you download, but for the most part, I think it should be more viewed as a larger iPhone, because yes, you can do split view, yes, you can do side by side, yes, you can do the slide over and things of that nature, which is core to the iPadOS multitasking ecosystem and use cases and the ability to be able to use multiple applications. But the screen size is too small to be able to do split view. Depending on the applications that you're using, when you go in split view mode, it looks a little bit weird. It looks like it's not made for this iPad display. It looks like it wasn't made purpose-built for the size of the display. That split view was made for the 11 inch and the 13 inch iPad Pro or iPad Airs respectively. It wasn't really made with the iPad mini in mind. And then same thing goes with the slide over view. It's almost like a super mini iPhone, even smaller than the iPhone mini that we had with the iPhone mini 12 and 13. The actual display that you get, or the actual view of the UI that you get with that slide over view, is just too small to do anything from a research perspective or reading, and it just feels extremely cramped. And then to go inside with the screen size and the lack of optimization, the home screen on the iPad mini is something that needs to be improved, right? When you go into your app view in the regular home screen of your iPad, the way that everything is laid out is just kind of awkward and weird, because you still have the same grid that you would have with the 11 inch and the 13 inch iPad Pro and iPad Airs, but again in a smaller form factor, making the icons even smaller, and it leaves a ton of space open for other applications that could be there, or maybe the ability to add more widgets. It's just not a great use of overall screen real estate and screen space on the iPad mini 7. And I know that Apple integrated that brand new view of being able to make the apps a little bit bigger in size, and that does help a little bit in terms of being able to fill in those empty gaps, but it adds no utility whatsoever. I would rather be able to add maybe another row of applications or another column, or maybe another set of widgets, or maybe just being able to free flow everything around in the actual home screen, especially with iPadOS 18, because right now there is a lack of utility with the lack of space used up on the iPad mini 7 home screen. So reason number 3 is going to be battery life. Now, of course, the battery life on this thing is going to be less because it's a smaller battery compared to the other iPads, but again, if I'm using it for more than just content consumption, this thing drains very rapidly overall. Like, I haven't had great battery life with the iPad mini 7. I'll get maybe 6 to 7 hours of continuous use. And like I continue to mention, this iPad, the purpose of this iPad was to have a throw around tablet, right? So something that maybe game on a little bit for myself, for my daughter, something to be able to view content very easily with Netflix and YouTube Kids, and then maybe some light productivity work. And by light, I mean very light, being able to use maybe my Apple Pencil to jot down handwritten notes or sketch something out, or maybe be able to then pull up maybe my notes application, or Again, something very simple when it comes to being able to get some productivity done. And some other use cases that I've had is going to be as an ebook, or for my wife to be able to read something, or maybe listen to a podcast out loud. And the biggest use case that we have for it is a baby monitor. We use the iPad mini as a display for our Nana baby monitor. And again, if we don't have that thing plugged in overnight, then it's going to drain that battery and we'll wake up to a dead iPad, which is kind of unfortunate. I do wish it had made it through the night with the Nana monitor and to be able to view something like that. But at the end of the day, the battery life just isn't sufficient for our use cases where we do take it with us for an entire day. We will need to plug it in before the end of the day or the end of that second day, which is kind of unfortunate compared to the larger iPads, which last pretty much for multiple days on end for our current use cases. The next reason, and this is depending on who you are and how you plan on using your iPad mini in general, is going to be the lack of accessories. For the most part, all I really see online is going to be folio cases and then USB-C accessories, but there isn't anything really purpose-built for the iPad mini 7 or any iPad mini for that matter, because again, it comes down to that awkward size. This is meant to be used as a standalone iPad, and of course it doesn't have the pin connectors that the other larger iPads have, so there's no keyboard solution. And I've noticed that maybe myself personally wouldn't want to have a small cramped keyboard like that. I could barely deal with the 11-inch Magic Keyboard to begin with, but I know that there are people that would like a keyboard, especially one directly from Apple, that can be used with confidence as opposed to buying a third-party one from Amazon, which might not breed the most amount of confidence, especially when you're connected via Bluetooth. So again, the lack of accessories is another reason why I thought maybe the iPad would be a little bit better, because I could maybe supplement it with a bunch of different accessories, but for the most part, the slower USB-C port on the bottom of the iPad mini compared to something like the iPad Pro doesn't allow it for fast data transfer speeds like I would want it to when it comes to being able to use this iPad mini on the go for more productivity-focused tasks. So overall, just not a fan of the current ecosystem of accessories, whether they are first-party ones, which are extremely expensive for what they are, like the folio case from Apple is way too expensive for what it is, and then also, like I said, in the third-party market, there just isn't too much, especially compared to something like the iPad Pro, which there's a ton of accessories out there for it. And now the biggest regret I have when it comes to the iPad mini 7 was that I didn't get the iPad mini 6 when the iPad mini 7 came out. On Amazon right now, the iPad mini 7 is technically on sale for $399, which isn't a bad price at all, especially if you know what you're going to use the iPad mini 7 for. The retail pricing of the iPad mini 7 is $499 or $500 for the 128GB model, but the only real differences we saw from the iPad mini 6 to the iPad mini 7 is going to be a bump in spec on the chipset to get the A17 Pro on the new one, which does allow for Apple Intelligence features, which I have used zero of on this iPad mini 7, and then also the baseline storage going from 64 to 128 gigs. So from a value play, it might seem like it is a decent value, especially if you get it from Amazon at that $399 price point, but when they first came out, the iPad mini 6 was on sale for almost $299, basically brand new in the box because they still had leftover stock, and that's the one that I wish I got, because at $299 or $300, that iPad mini 6 brand new with the A14 chip was going to be more than enough for my current use cases. And then another big reason why I regret it is because the iPad mini 7, the new one, only supports the new Apple Pencil Pro and the USB-C Apple Pencil, so I would need to get another $130 accessory to be able to use the Apple Pencil with the iPad mini 7. Whereas I had a bunch of Apple Pencils 2 laying around from my history of having the iPad Pro since 2018, so I would have been able to just use the same Apple Pencil 2 that I've already had in my drawer with the $299 iPad mini 6 I would have gotten. Yes, it would have been 64 gigs, but again, for my personal use cases, everything is in iCloud. There isn't really much stored on the iPad mini, so that is my biggest regret, not purchasing the older model when it was still brand new on Amazon and going for the more expensive $499 model, and that is why I still think that the iPad mini 6 in the renewed fashion could be the better buy, because I believe they are around $320 on Amazon, but I do think that the best buy right now is going to be the iPad 10th generation, because that does give you the larger display at 10.9 inches, you still have the A14 chip that the old iPad mini 6 had. It doesn't have Apple Intelligence, but again, you don't really need the Apple Intelligence for a device like this. It still has pin connectors, so it has a first-party case, it works with the USB-C Apple Pencil, which is only around $60 or $70 on Amazon, and again, that 10.9 iPad 10th generation is only $300 directly from Amazon. If you guys do want to check those out, I will leave those linked down below. The iPad mini 7 at $399, which again is a fair value overall, but if you're really going for the cost saving with the larger display, I think that the 10.9-inch iPad 10th generation is going to be the best value buy overall. So at the end of the day, it comes down to price and value for this iPad mini 7 and what you're going to be using it for overall. For me, like I said, I regret it in terms of the price point and what I'm doing with it, But I know that there's a lot of people that love the form factor and love the size, and again, like that price to performance ratio overall, and they like the idea of being future-proofed with Apple Intelligence already in mind with this iPad mini 7. So let me know in the comment down below what you think. Is iPad mini 7 worth it for you at that price point? Retails at $500 on Amazon. You can get it anywhere from $400 to $450, depending on when you're watching this video. So let me know in the comment down below what you think. I'm always curious to know if that iPad mini is worth it for you. But that'll do it, everybody. If you made it to the end, leave a little dolphin in the comments down below so I know you made it to the end. And if you want to watch more videos like this one, definitely check out one of these videos right here. And until next time, I'm Fernando, and I'm out of here, everybody. Peace. Again, iPad mini 7 is great in its own right. I just wish I got the older model when it was still available brand new and it was only $300. You know, we live and we learn.